It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
And good morning, good evening, and hope you're doing well, and welcome on in. Man, there is a lot of news. You can find out more about me on my social media, and you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, all the socials at Dan Mandis Show. And just some of the headlines that we've got this morning. By the way, Gary and Eric, they return on Sunday night, Monday morning. But we've got a lot going on. The NBA gambling scandal. This is a crazy, crazy story. We're going to get into that. And even crazier is what Stephan A. Smith said about all of this. I can't wait to tell you that story. Are we about to go to war with Venezuela and China? Now, I know there's a lot of headlines out there that we could be getting ready to go into Venezuela. That is ultimately only part of the discussion. China is also a big part of the discussion. We also have a lot of people saying, oh, it's for the oil, it's for the oil. Well, sort of. We'll talk about that. More truth bombs from John Fetterman. And there's a lot more where that came from, a lot of headlines. ICE remains under fire. Trump is taking on the drug cartels. And by the way, one of the most interesting stories that I have for you tonight is Donald Trump wanting to bring in beef from Argentina. So there's just a lot. And the thing about Argentina is that this is a really interesting conversation, not only economically, your economics, because you bring in more beef from Argentina. Theoretically, that will make our meat prices go down, but at the cost of the farmers. The farmers, you know, these rural communities, those supported Donald Trump by like 93%. And so there's a lot of political intrigue with this conversation. So again, we've got a lot going on this morning, and appreciate you listening to Red Eye Radio. Going to start out with Venezuela, because there's a lot of people that are actually saying that I'm not going to call it an invasion, call it what you want, but we could be moving into Venezuela as early as tonight. At least that's what some people are saying. So we are watching all things Venezuela. We have a number of things going on here as it relates to the planes and the drones and, the helicopters and the troops. We have all kinds of military that are patrolling the waters off of Venezuela in the Caribbean. So, again, the president was asked about this a couple of days ago. When exactly is it, do you believe, Mr. President, that we'll be going into Venezuela?
Drugs by sea, they call it also. That's almost down to nothing, as you can imagine. So they continue to come in by land at a little bit less because they see something is going to happen. They don't like it. They see something, and they're right. Something very serious is going to happen. The equivalent of what's happening by sea. And we're going to Congress just to tell them what we're doing, just to keep them informed.
Right.
But we have to do it for national security. We have to do it to save lives.
All right. So the president, of course, and you know what's been going on, right? We have taken out a total of 9 boats, drug boats, that have been coming towards America. 37 total people killed on those boats, and a whole bunch of drugs have been scattered into the sea, blown up, as they say, blown to smithereens. Now, our president has had Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in his sights for years, ever since they allowed all of those illegal aliens to leave their country and come here, including, as President Trump has said many times, prisoners and mental patients, not to mention, of course, Tren de Aragua. So as this moment has been approaching again for years, President Trump has been talking about this a lot because, of course, everybody wants to know what is next. And as I just mentioned, 9 boats have been taken out, 37 casualties. You have a lot of people, mainly on the left, some people on the right, talking about how blowing those boats to smithereens may or may not be legal. I really don't care about that. I think that if you've got these countries that are trying to kill Americans, then all bets are off. But the president was asked about all of this, and why wouldn't he just stop the boats? Why do you have to destroy them and kill all of those people on the boats? This is what Trump had to say, and it makes a lot of sense.
We've been doing that for 30 years, and it has been totally ineffective. They have faster boats. Some of these boats are seriously, they're world-class speedboats, but they're not faster than missiles. But we've been trying to do that for years, and so much of the drugs, 25-30%, would come in through the seas. Right now we have, I would say, none coming in through the seas. In fact, I don't know about the fishing industry. If you want to go fishing, a lot of people aren't deciding to even go fishing. We've almost totally stopped it by sea. Now we'll stop it by land.
What's the next
But
step?
it never worked. It never worked when you did it in a very politically correct manner.
Yeah, that's what the president said earlier this week. And again, as I said, this has been a moment that has been a long time coming. And I don't know if we're going to be going into Venezuela tonight. I'm telling you, that's what some folks are saying. And again, we'll continue to monitor the situation. But Trump has been saying that Maduro has been trying to get on his good side as this military buildup has begun. And this has been going on now, as you know, for a couple of months. Now, it's all about regime change. That is what's going on. And Maduro has basically been asking Trump, pleading with Donald Trump, don't arrest me, don't kill me, don't force regime change in Venezuela. Donald Trump and Marco Rubio want nothing to do with Maduro.
Offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to f*** around with the United States. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, that was earlier this week, the president dropping the F-bomb. You know what's funny about that video? I saw this. You've got J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. You've got J.D. Vance to the president's right and Rubio to the president's left. And Trump, as you just heard, he dropped the F-bomb. And J.D. Vance is over there just laughing. Marco Rubio is grinning as well. But a few things. So we've got thousands of troops, drones and ships in the Caribbean ready to go. Trump actually admitted to CIA covert operations happening in Venezuela, which I thought was weird because, and I said this on my morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, it's not covert if you admit it. So I think part of what the president is doing is it's kind of like head games with Maduro. He's just kind of messing with him, if you know what I mean. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm not much for regime change type operations. We'll see where this goes, but we know that regime change operations, they can end in disaster. But here's the other thing. Remember who the allies are of Venezuela. It is our enemies. It is Russia. It is China. It is Iran. Now, remember, way back when I was on Red Eye Radio and I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and that's 6 to 10 Eastern Time. You can find me on all the socials and you can listen anywhere. But we talked about weaponized migration. All of these countries, and it's the ones that I just mentioned, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea as well. And the theory is, and it's not really a theory, it just depends on who you believe, how bad it was, but all of these countries sending in illegal aliens or their own sleeper cells through Venezuela to destabilize our country. And again, Venezuela was a huge part of that. So as far as the whole geopolitical landscape, because if we go into Venezuela, the president, of course, is positioning this as it's about the drugs. But I think it's about a lot more than that. You've got Russia in Venezuela. They've got arms agreements. Russia buys some oil from Venezuela, but really Venezuela is purchasing arms from Russia. And China, same thing. China is a huge partner with Venezuela. China is also our mortal enemy. So with China, you've got a lot of oil that is being sold from Venezuela to China, by the way, bypassing sanctions and so forth. And so you're talking about a lot of oil, lots and lots of oil. And so basically, Basically, China owns Venezuela. They've loaned Venezuela like billions, tens of billions of dollars over the years. And basically, Venezuela gives that money back in oil. Now, Venezuela's oil, is that like heavier, dirtier crude? They have some lighter stuff, but, really it is that heavier crude that they have been exporting, giving to or selling to China. It does require a lot of processing, but still is valuable for their allies. But, Trump, essentially what he's trying to do a number of different things. Number one, he is trying to stop the drugs from coming into our country. That is most certainly true. But the other thing that he's trying to do, he's trying to weaken China. He's already weakened Iran, clearly, which Iran was also a partner, if you will, an ally of China. And now he's going after Venezuela. Because if he can go after Venezuela and impact China, that weakens China. And then that makes us stronger on the world stage. The New York Times has an article reporting that we are going after Venezuela, and I'm going to air quote this, for the oil. So you're going to have a lot of people out there, hearkening back to, the Iraq war, where you had all these people saying, no blood for oil, no blood for oil. And you got people, even today, saying, oh, the only reason we're going into Venezuela is for the oil. And I'm going to air quote that, for the oil. It's not really the case. Is there geopolitical things going on? Yeah, there are worldwide battles going on that we are engaged in. And sadly, that's just a fact. And when you are a superpower, like America is a superpower, and there are other superpowers that we are having to deal with, sometimes we just got to do what we got to do. Now, per the New York Times, Donald Trump has just given the CIA permission, this was a couple of days ago, to carry out deadly covert missions in Venezuela, a plan, of course, pushed by Marco Rubio and John Ratcliffe to remove President Nicolas Maduro while U.S. troops and warships build up in the Caribbean. They say it's not drug enforcement, it's the start of a war so we can take over Venezuela's oil, hurt China, and gain global power. Now, a few things. The same people said that we would take over Iraq's oil. We never did. But remember all that. No blood for oil. We never took over their oil fields for our own economic gain. We do business with Iraq on oil, but we never militarily took over their oil fields. We never stole their resources. So that's another part of the conversation. The other part of it is we don't really need Venezuela's crappy oil. We have our own and tons of it, but it's about weakening China. If you want to make a case that we want to take over Venezuela's oil so that we weaken China and Russia, I would listen to that. But again, that's not, taking over a country's oil just for our own gluttonous purposes. It's being strategic on the world stage. Now, the New York Times says that we can, quote, gain global power by removing Maduro and take over their oil. We already have global power, but if we can weaken China and Russia, I would say okay. But we're going to have to see how this whole thing plays out. Wall Street Journal reporting that we had B-1 bombers flying over the Caribbean in yet another show of force against Venezuela. Earlier this week, Venezuela said that they had missiles that could take down our aircraft. And so there is a lot going on with this storyline, and we will continue to watch it as the evening progresses. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. I do have the text line that I use for my local show. It is up and running. So if you can't call in, text in 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986. Got a lot more straight ahead. My name is Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller. When driving, you need to manage the space around your vehicle so that there's enough space to allow you to adjust when traffic conditions change. The space ahead of your vehicle is the most important. One rule of thumb is to allow at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. At greater speeds, add an additional second. It's impossible to keep other drivers from tailgating you, but there are some things you can do to make it safer, such as increasing your following distance, avoiding quick lane changes, and slowing down. There are also several things you should do to ensure that there is plenty of space between the side of your vehicle and other vehicles. Don't hug the center line, and avoid traveling alongside other vehicles in strong winds. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. You know, I wish I could say that I'm surprised. So I'm doing the show from home tonight because that's, you know, when I do Red Eye Radio these days, I do it from my basement studio. And I look to the left, and they got a nice big TV over there. CNN has been so hyper-focused on the demolition of the East Wing of the White House. They even got, and this is, I guess it's a repeat of, I don't know exactly. I think that's Aaron Burnett, but I don't know. But they say it's breaking news. White House on defense over East Wing demolition. Is the White House on defense? I don't think the White House is on defense over the East Wing demolition. The funny thing, though, is that CNN is obsessed over this story. I mean, last night we talked about all of the different presidents that have made changes to the White House over the years. And so I think that somewhere along the line, CNN, I think CNN, they believe, and the left believes, that this is a story that is going to be a disaster for the Republicans. I mean, they've got this sort of all of these images that are just rotating, and it's the rubble of the East Wing of the White House. And the funny thing is, and we did go through this last night, but the funny thing is that there have been past presidents, Democrats like John Kennedy, who have even said, you know, the space issues at the White House, the struggle is real. And we need a place to have really fancy events. And so CNN, they are like hyperventilating over this story. Can I just tell you, I'm having a hard time, it may not sound like it, but I'm having a hard time getting excited about this story. Do you know what gets me excited? What gets me excited is the fact that CNN thinks that this is such a story that they are owning the Trump administration. And I just, again, not to belabor the point, but I don't see why this is a big deal. Former chief of staff to First Lady Melania Trump is being interviewed by CNN because Melania Trump apparently has been silent over the East Wing demolition. Because remember, the lady's offices were in the East Wing, and so now you've got her offices that have been moved. But remember what we talked about. What we talked about is that in the East Wing, it is traditionally been, as they say, utilitarian. You know what's going to happen? Lord help us if the Democrats get control of the House of Representatives. I bet you they'll try to impeach President Trump over this. After the midterm elections, if, Lord help us, the Democrats end up with the House of Representatives, because that's where all that stuff starts. But I just think it's funny. Yeah, that was Aaron Burnett. So I just think it's funny that they're spending so much time on this when you've got the NBA mafia gambling scandal, Venezuela's blowing up, and a whole lot more.
Catch Red Eye Radio live every night on the Red Eye Radio app, available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Gary and Eric, by the way, return Sunday night, Monday morning. It is always fun, a blast to fill in on the mighty Red Eye Radio. My name is Dan Mandis. You can, if you can't call in, text in, 615-737-9986. That is my text line from my local show in Nashville, Tennessee. So let's talk about this NBA gambling scandal. I find this fascinating, and the reaction to the investigation also fascinating. So I'm going to try to go through this. I'm going to admit that I'm not a basketball fan, but I do find this interesting because the end of this segment where I play the audio from Stephan A. Smith, trash take, worst take ever on all of this, but I've got to get through the story first. So if you don't know what's going on, the National Basketball Association, the FBI comes out, and they have uncovered this huge gambling scandal that combines the NBA, a couple of coaches and a player, and the mafia. So they've got these two NBA coaches, a player, 30 others named in multiple indictments. The allegations are that they were involved in a widespread mafia-linked gambling scandal. It's really interesting. So you've got a guy by the name of Terry Rozier, who is a player with the Miami Heat, Chauncey Billups, who is the coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, former player as well, and Damon Jones, who I guess is a coach and former player. Now, charges include conspiring to commit fraud, money laundering as well, illegal gambling, and extortion, to name just a few.
Today, we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Cosa Nostra.
So what is La Cosa Nostra? And by the way, that is Kash Patel. La Cosa Nostra is the mob. It's a long-running organized crime network that originated in Sicily. And then it took root across America over the years. The group, they say, according to Fox News, the group structured around families has been tied to racketeering, extortion, drug trafficking, illegal gambling for decades. According to the FBI, they are prevalent in big Democrat-run cities, of course, like New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia as well.
Individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states. The charges and the arrests that were taken down across this country range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling.
Yeah, so, I mean, basically what we're talking about is an insider sports betting ring that used private NBA information to profit from wagers. So if you, for example, find out if a player is hurt or going to be benched or whatever, you use that information to make the bets and make millions of dollars. It's, again, insider sports betting, and it's tied to the mafia. So there's that aspect of this investigation. There's also a separate case involving this guy Billups, who is accused in a scheme where he was allegedly involved in manipulating underground poker games.
Chauncey Billups, according to federal prosecutors, was the lure, the mafia allegedly paying him for his celebrity to attract high rollers to poker tables in the Hamptons, in Las Vegas, in Miami, and right here in Manhattan, so they would gamble, so they would play poker. What those people didn't know was that everyone else at the table was in on the scam.
Wow.
Because the games were rigged. Chauncey Billups was known as a face card because the mafia allegedly used his face to lure in these unsuspecting victims.
Okay.
The victims themselves were called fish.
So that is Aaron Katursky. And so they were ripping people off, allegedly. This guy, Chauncey Billups, and the mob in these illegal poker games where they were ripping people off, manipulating the cards, manipulating the game. They had equipment that they used to rip off the gamblers. For example, they had card shuffling machines that were altered to not only read everybody's hand, but then relay that information to an off-site location. They also had people in on the scam who were playing poker with all of these high-end poker players. And the people who were working for the mafia had these glasses or contact lenses that could see through the cards so that they could tell what the victims, what cards they had. So in short, you have the mob accused of using inside information to make money on the games, and you have NBA coaches and players participating in these crooked and rigged card games run by the mob. So I want to make sure that you've got all that. All of this is allegedly. But then Stephan A. Smith, who you know that I believe that he's plotting to run for president, but whatever, ESPN commentator and all that. Well, Stephan A. Smith had some comments, which I thought were really peculiar. I've been a fan of Stephan A. Smith in the sense that he's willing to call out his own party. He's willing to call out the Democrats. He has, in the past, had a lot of great things to say. But man, I got to tell you, this is just baffling.
We know what world that I live in terms of politics. How many times, for one incident after another, have I said, Trump is coming? He's coming.
Okay.
I'm going to say it on national television again.
Right. So what he's doing, what Stephan A. Smith is doing, is he really blaming Donald Trump? Is he really saying that Donald Trump told the FBI, told Kash Patel, go after the NBA? And then Kash Patel and the FBI, they just made this whole thing up out of whole cloth? Because that's essentially what Stephan A. Smith is saying. What he's basically saying, as he's sounding all dramatic, is that Donald Trump ordered the FBI to go after the NBA, and that, I guess, all of these accusations, and while I, of course, would say that they're innocent until proven guilty, I would say that it doesn't make any sense where Stephan A. Smith is just saying that, Donald Trump is coming.
Trump is coming.
That's what
he's coming.
He's sounding all dramatic. And so I'm listening to all of this, and one thing keeps flashing into my head. Did these guys do bad stuff or didn't they? I mean, Stephan A. Smith, he kept repeating the same thing over and over and over again. Donald Trump is coming. And I do, again, understand that they are presumed innocent. And they will have their day in court. But Smith, again, is acting like Donald Trump and his henchmen have just walked in, thrown these guys in handcuffs, locked them up without a trial, which is not actually what happened. So enough with all the drama, Stephan A. Smith. Trump's going after bad guys and the mob. And leave it to a Democrat to spin that somehow into a bad thing.
Don't be surprised if the WNBA is next on his list.
Oh, stop it. Just stop it. Here's what I would say to Stephan A. Smith. If the NBA, and again, all of this is allegedly, but if the WNBA is partnering with the mob to provide insider information so that wagers or bets can be made, and people win millions of dollars based on that insider information, and that's illegal, which it is, and that's happening within the WNBA, well then, yeah, you need to go after those people. But Stephan A. Smith believes that there is something nefarious going on.
Don't be surprised if the WNBA is next on his list. Because when you've got all of these protests that have been going out there and people that have been protesting against him and what have you, this man is coming. He's coming.
He same thing, man, over and over again. It kind of looks like he's already there, to be honest with you. But you see how he's trying to sound like all foreboding and dramatic? It's like, dude, it's an investigation into the NBA and the mob on a whole bunch of different charges. But it's an investigation that ultimately, if this turns out to be true, then are you going to apologize to Donald Trump and the Trump administration for essentially saying that Donald Trump and his henchmen are making this up out of whole cloth?
And I've been saying it for a long time. And to me, this is the latest nugget of evidence that we're talking about right here. That's not to question the legitimacy of the case. We don't know.
Well, but I love how he throws that in there. I love how he throws in there, well, I'm not saying that, this is an illegitimate case. Well, but you're saying that Donald Trump is coming. And he's going after the NBA because of the anti-Trump protests, I guess. He may go after the WNBA. Well, which is it? Is it an investigation that is legitimate, or is it an illegitimate investigation based only on Donald Trump's thirst for revenge? You see, Stephen A. Smith, you can't have it both ways, dude. You just can't. You can't, on the one hand, say Donald Trump is coming. He's coming for the NBA. He's coming for the WNBA. You can't say that and then say, well, it could be a legitimate investigation. I don't think they would have, all of these documents through 11 states if this wasn't a legitimate investigation.
We're all sitting up here and we're saying that we don't know. But anybody that has been around him, anybody that has talked to him, anybody that has seen his reactions from the sports leagues and the positions that people have taken, they are not surprised at what's going on today.
So did anything bad happen within the mob and the NBA? See, that's the thing that he's forgetting. This is just another extension, and this is what drives me bat crap crazy. This is just another extension of, Donald Trump is going after his political enemies. Well, you know what? If Donald Trump's political enemies are breaking the law, then he should be going after them. I mean, Kash Patel, I played you the audio. He's like, this has been going on for years. I mean, personally, if these charges turn out to be true, then Donald Trump has busted up a serious crime syndicate. But leave it to the Democrats to spin that into a bad thing. Because by and large, Democrats, as you know, friends, Democrats are soft on crime. But Smith, Stephen A. Smith, he's taking this whole thing and turning it into some sort of a revenge plot, with Donald Trump, of course, going after his political enemies, which is most certainly a narrative on the left.
Athletes get in trouble with the law before. You don't see the director of the FBI having a press conference.
Can I ask a question? Can I just ask this question? So, yeah, you have NBA players and professional athletes get into trouble. I mean, maybe they're speeding. Maybe it's some sort of an assault case, whatever it might be. But that kind of a case doesn't need the FBI, Stephen A. Smith. Duh. This involves the mob. This involves insider information. This involves illegal poker games with high-end poker players. So that's why the FBI is involved. Do I really have to explain this to you?
It's not coincidental. It's not an accident. It's a statement. And it's a warning that more is coming. This ain't the platform for me to get into it the way I'm going to get into it. But I've been saying he's coming. He's coming.
He won't stop. He just won't stop. So I guess my question is, what are they supposed to do? What is the Trump administration supposed to do? Ignore crime that might be going on because Stephen A. Smith might, repeat over and over again that Donald Trump is coming? Wait till you hear what Kash Patel had to say about all this. It is coming up next on Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio, 86690 Red Eye. So FBI Director Kash Patel has a message for Stephen A. Smith, who says that the FBI investigating this possibility of a crime syndicate with the mafia and the NBA is some sort of, part of Donald Trump's revenge tour. This is what Kash Patel had to say.
That may be the single dumbest thing I've ever heard out of anyone in modern history, and I live most of my time in Washington, D.C. It's right up there with Adam Schiff. We arrest people for crimes.
So there you go. We'll see if there's a response from Stephen A. Smith. My name is Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
Phone number is 86690 Red Eye, 866-907-3339. The text line that we are using tonight. If you can't call in, text it if you would, 615-737-9986. And there's a lot of news going on this morning, so I'm trying to get through it all. Of course, you know that Venezuela, that is percolating, and there's some reports that there is an attack by America on Venezuela is imminent. Now, when we say attack, the question is, okay, well, then what exactly does that mean? Well, it means that Donald Trump has been frustrated with Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, for a long time. And it is about the drugs that he is trafficking into America and across the world, Maduro is. And it's also about dealing with China and oil and, geopolitical kind of conversations. So there is that, and we're keeping our eye on it because there are some people that were saying online that there could be, an attack in the next several hours. So we're watching all of that, and we will continue to cover that here on Red Eye Radio. We also have been talking about the NBA gambling scandal. I just went over that. There's one other thing I want to mention because I thought it's interesting that some people like Stephen A. Smith are saying that this is simply Donald Trump going after his political enemies. Well, you know when this investigation started? 2023. So this investigation actually started under the Biden administration. And then it continued on into the Trump administration and Kash Patel. I've been playing audio and so forth, but Kash Patel, talking about how this NBA gambling scandal does involve the mafia. But this is not, as Stephen A. Smith would tell you, this is not, in my opinion, about Donald Trump going after his political enemies on some sort of a, revenge tour, which is what the left is trying to say. It's not. What it is an FBI investigation into apparently some evil doings by the mafia and the NBA. Some players within the FBI and NBA and a coach as well, or a couple of coaches. You got two coaches, I think, one player, and 30 others who have been arrested. So we'll keep an eye on that story as well. LeBron James, by the way, has been tied to this whole thing as well. And we'll get into that here a little bit later on this hour on Red Eye Radio. Again, the text line is open, 615-737-9986. I want to talk a little bit about beef and that Donald Trump is now apparently turning to Argentina to help with the costs of beef. Now, as you know, if you've been to the store, you know that beef prices are really, really high. But there's a problem. The problem is, as Donald Trump is saying, hey, Argentina, please bring in more beef, what that is doing is infuriating America's cattle farmers. because they feel like Donald Trump is going to import their competition from Argentina. So if you're a cattle farmer and you voted for Donald Trump, like 93% of the rural communities did, and all of a sudden you hear the president say that he's going to bring in beef from Argentina, well, then what that ultimately is going to do is that is going to impact what you make as a rancher. And so now you've got all of these ranchers across America who are upset because they feel like Donald Trump has sold them out. But the problem is the cost of meat has skyrocketed. Beef prices have hit record highs this year. As a matter of fact, I grokked it. Grok says it is because of a contraction in cattle herds, droughts, high feed costs, among other things. Now, we're going to get into those, among other things, here in a little bit. I'm going to tell you this segment is going to get a little wonky. It's going to get a little wonky on the whole beef market thing, but I find this really interesting. The question is, would bringing in more beef from Argentina actually lower the cost of hamburger and steak here in America? But right now, ground beef is up almost 13%. Steak is up over 16%. Veal, which I've never had, but veal is up 14%. And so, yeah, there is no doubt that the cost of meat has gone up a lot.
Consumers will tell us when the beef is too high. I think it's outlandish for the president to come out and say the beef is too high and he's
this is a rancher
going to get it down himself. What is his problem with higher priced beef? Because consumers have a choice in proteins. There's chicken, there's pork, there's all different proteins. Consumers have chose to buy beef. President Trump ran on being a free market guy. So what he was saying last week goes totally against what he ran on.
Well, so anyway, that rancher obviously not real happy. You know, when I look at the prices of beef and I see $7 to $8 for a pound of lean ground beef, you got your basic sirloin steak. It's as high as $12 a pound, $20 for a prime steak. So I'm going to be honest with you. It's funny. We had a little kerfuffle in my house, which doesn't happen all that often. But the kerfuffle was that we had some steak in the refrigerator, and yours truly, who was in charge of, the grill and barbecuing and such things, I didn't see this very expensive steak. And so I ordered pizza instead. My wife, who does the shopping, reminded me as to how expensive steak is and said, we're not buying any more steak. No steak for you. And my response wasn't probably the best. But anyway, that's what's going on. Because the steak ended up going bad. But that's what's going on, is that beef is really expensive. So Trump is looking for a way to fix the problem. He's looking for a way to fix the problem. Now, the question is this the right way to fix it? Now, he posted on Truth Social, Donald Trump, the cattle ranchers, who I love, don't understand that the only reason they're doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States, including, he says, a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. Trump says it would be nice if they would understand that, but they also have to get their prices down because the consumer is a very big factor in my thinking also. He added, in addition to everything else, tariffs on other countries saved our cattle ranchers. So we get a lot of beef as well from Brazil, and President Trump put a 50% tariff on Brazil. So we had beef coming in from Brazil, but I guess less because of the tariffs. So the cattle ranchers, they're really angry because, with President Trump saying that he was going to bring in beef from Argentina, the cattle ranchers are really angry because they say that it's not actually their fault that beef prices are so high here in America. And they'll tell you that there are issues like drought, disease, shrinking herds, and a lot more. So these ranchers are facing a lot of issues that they will tell you is not their fault. You know what they also say? They also say that the meatpacking plants are at fault. Now, these are the companies that buy the cows from the farmers and then slaughter them and send the meat off to the stores. Well, those companies, the meatpacking plants, there's only like 4 of them. They're like the major ones, 4, and they're manipulating the market. Listen to this farmer. I think this lady was in Nebraska.
So the problem is in the middle. It's the packing houses. It's the big 4, big 5 packing houses. They tend to manipulate the pricing by shortening their kill days. So rather than killing 5 days a week, having a 5-day-a-week slaughter schedule, they'll reduce it down to 3 days. And the price of price of meat will go up because supply and demand has been affected.
All right, so it's a monopoly, right, of these big 4. And so they're being accused, it's a little hard to hear. You got a duck quacking in the background, whatever. But they're being accused of not running at full capacity to create what is being called artificial scarcity. So these meatpacking plants, they say, are manipulating these markets, the meat market. So our government is allowing the likes of Brazil to import beef into our country. That competes with our own farmers. That's been going on for a long time. Trump put a 50% tariff on Brazil. But if Brazil floods our country with their meat, that forces our own farmers to lower their prices. So now we've got really high prices going on in the grocery stores, and some would say it's because of those tariffs on Brazil. Our government has had restrictions on how much beef can be imported into America from Argentina now for a long time, like 20 years, because of the foot-and-mouth problems with Argentina's beef back in 2001. So the beef coming in from Argentina has been very limited and tariffed for years. Well, since last year, that began to change. And so now with Donald Trump bringing in more of this Argentina beef, well, that is once again going to compete with our own ranchers here in America, selling out the ranchers, they would say. Trump has now decided to allow the amount of beef coming in from Argentina to increase by a lot, which means more competition for the farmers. And by the way, I would say these are the farmers that, again, voted for Donald Trump. This is what Trump said about all of this earlier this week on Air Force One.
You have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, as they are
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive. If I can help them survive in a free world, I happen to like the president of Argentina. I think he's trying to do the best he can. But don't make it sound like they're doing great. They are dying.
So, I mean, that is Donald Trump, and I get it. He's, he likes the Argentinian president. And he is right that Argentina is fighting for its life. But you know what? So are Americans. So are the farmers. And so, understandably, Donald Trump is in a very tough position. He wants to help Argentina. He also wants to help the American consumer. That's what he said on Truth Social. This is not necessarily about only Argentina. This is about the American consumer who are facing really high prices if they want to buy beef, steak, ground beef, veal, whatever. And so if you bring in the beef from Argentina, plus the beef, of course, from Brazil, then you've got more beef coming in from outside of our country, but that upsets the American farmers. So now you have Republicans from these beef-producing states that have always been pro-Donald Trump. The Republicans are freaking out because Trump, they say, is going to destroy these farmers. As I've mentioned, the president won 93% of the rural communities across America. Huge numbers of farmers. Now, Deb Fischer, she is a congresswoman from the state of Nebraska.
Let's focus here on America. Let's focus on hardworking farmers and ranchers who are looking for markets, not a check, not a sentence. But in Congress, we have tried to help in that way too.
So, listen, this is a tough one for me because I'm out here and you're out here paying a lot of money for steak and for ground beef and so on. And we're fighting these really high prices. And so for the president to say, you know what, I'm going to bring in beef from Argentina. I'm going to open up this market, let more beef come in from Argentina. We'll see if he ends up dropping some of these tariffs on Brazil to try to lower the cost of meats here in America. So you could argue that he is trying to help all of the all Americans, even if it's at the peril of the farmers. But he's also come out and he said that he's going to try to do things to help the farmers as well. Something about, trying to reestablish herds and trying to take care of the monopoly in the meatpacking plants and so forth. It is a complicated issue, but it is also a very important issue because those of us who happen to enjoy eating steak and eating hamburger, and we've been paying a lot of money for it, I think we would like to see some relief. The question is, what will it do to the farmers? Again, it is a very complicated issue. If you want to chime in, feel free. 866-90-RED-I, 866-907-3339. The text line is open as well, 615-737-9986. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
How would one define a successful dairy farm? University of Minnesota's Jim Salfer acknowledges
it probably changes, and it probably is really variable from farm to farm. A lot of that really should be based on the farmer's goals.
Whether it's family, financial, or business-oriented. Yet regardless of goals, Salfer notes some common characteristics among successful dairy growers.
You can almost kind of lump them into two broad categories, kind of big picture items, business items, and then there's obviously you need to have a lot of good, successful production skills.
And he says it starts with producers having what he calls an attitude of gratitude.
They're so gracious. If I come out, they'll be thankful. They'll thank the agribusiness people that are out there as we meet, and they just go out of their way. And they're also very thankful for the customers that they have.
Passion for work, planning and organization, and skilled at caring for their cows are other traits of successful dairy growers recognized by Salfer. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. I do appreciate you listening. Hey, coming up next, after the break at the bottom of the hour, going to go into Caroline Leavitt and how she, and I'm such a Caroline Leavitt fan, she absolutely owned the media today, the White House press corps. Because as I mentioned in the first hour, they are so obsessed with the reconstruction of the White House, the tearing down of the East Wing to put up the ballroom, and they won't let this go. And the thing that I'm particularly fascinated about is the fact that not only will they not let that go, but they refuse to report that Donald Trump has every right, every authority to do what he's doing to the East Wing. He does. And so Caroline Leavitt is fielding all of these questions. I've got a great soundbite for you coming up, but it's too long to play right now, but it's a great soundbite because she actually brings, not only does she bring the receipts, she brings pictures. She brings pictures. Oh, by the way, you know what else I'm going to play for you coming back? I actually have not heard this audio yet. Somebody told me, though. that Chelsea Clinton is now chiming in. Now, far be it from me to say anything about her father actually desecrating the sanctity of the White House. I would never say that, but some people could in reference to Monica Lewinsky. I'm not going to do that, but some could. So we'll talk about that and a whole lot more straight ahead. Plus your calls, 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. The text line is open, 615-737-9986. When I host, my name is Dan Mandis. I bring my text line with me that I use during my local show. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm on 6 to 10 Eastern Time, 5 Central, and you can find me all over the streaming platforms. We also broadcast on YouTube, so if you're the type that for whatever reason likes to watch radio shows in action, you can find me there as well. Most mornings, 5 to 9 a.m., although I do have this morning off from the local show. All right, can we talk about Chelsea Clinton for a minute? So she is now apparently unsettled by the fact that Donald Trump is taking care of the East Wing of the White House, tearing it down so that they can put up a big fancy ball, which to me, quite frankly, makes all the sense in the world. The president does have every right to do so, and that did come up in the White House press briefing as well. We're going to get into that. Because I do find it interesting how, and I've been watching CNN. I watch it so you don't have to, but I've been watching CNN, and they are just hyperventilating over this story. So if you don't know the story, well, if you're listening to Red Eye, you should. But basically, Donald Trump has torn down parts of the East Wing of the White House, and which has been described as utilitarian in nature. Utilitarian in nature, where they have random offices there right now, or at least they did have the First Lady's offices there. They've now been moved, and they're making way for this, big ballroom that the president wants to make and build. Presidents in the past, including JFK, have said that space inside the White House is really, really tight. You know, they have ballrooms. They had a ballroom in the East Wing. They've got another ballroom in the White House as well. But it's only got a couple hundred person seating capacity. And then when you put in tables, it's a lot less. And so Trump basically is saying, look, we need a ballroom. Because if we want to do something big, if we want to do something cool, we've got to go off-site. And that means we need additional security. We've got to spend money on, renting a facility and all that goes with it. And as you more than likely know, taxpayer money is not being used for this. Donald Trump is paying for this. Some of his donor friends are paying for it. But Chelsea Clinton, of all people, is unsettled by Donald Trump's White House renovation. They say Chelsea Clinton has expressed her unsettled feelings about President Donald Trump's renovation of the White House, particularly the demolition of the East Wing to create a ballroom. She argues that such changes should be made with a historic preservation review and input from experts, as there is no evidence that Donald Trump consulted with historians to preserve the building's history and integrity. Clinton's concerns are echoed by her mother, Hillary, who has also expressed similar sentiments about the changes being made to the White House. The renovation has sparked significant debate and criticism, with many calling for a more thoughtful approach to preserving the nation's most historic residence. She also says Donald Trump is taking a wrecking ball to history. Didn't the Clintons, when they left the White House, I mean, we all know what Bill Clinton did with Monica Lewinsky. I mean, it's like, please, Clintons, sit this one out. You are the ones that defiled the White House. Bill specifically. But also, didn't the Clintons, I'll have to look this up in a minute, but I think the Clintons, on the way out, didn't they like steal a bunch of stuff from the White House? I think I remember that. But anyway, Caroline Leavitt, I'll look that up, but Caroline Leavitt, you know what? If you're listening, text me the info. 615-737-9986. I do seem to recall the Clintons absconding with a bunch of stuff from the White House and that being a big situation. Caroline Leavitt was doing the White House press briefing, and the reporter asked this question. So can you help us understand, can the president tear down anything he wants without oversight? Listen to how this went.
So the White House has explained that the reason you didn't submit construction plans to the NCPC is because that commission, along with others, don't have oversight over demolitions, but only over construction. And so far, you haven't built anything. So can you help us understand, can the president tear down anything he wants without oversight? Can he demolish this building or, say, the Jefferson Memorial?
So it's not the president who came up with that legal opinion himself. That's a legal opinion that's been held by the NCPC for many years. It's written, so we can get you that background and that research if you wish.
The law requires federal agencies to assess the impact of projects on historic properties through a public review process, Section 106. However, Section 107 explicitly exempts three key buildings from this requirement: the White House, the U.S. Capitol, and the U.S. Supreme Court. This nearly 60-year-old exemption gives the president broad latitude for renovations without mandatory federal review. So I don't know why this is a question.
To include it in your reporting, because it is very important. They have ruled consistently, their general counsel has said, when it comes to phase one of this project, the tearing down of the current East Wing structure, a submission is not required legally for that. Only for vertical construction will a submission be required, and that's a legal opinion from them, and we are following that legal opinion. And again, I would just add, can any president do such a thing to the White House grounds? There have been many presidents in the past who have made their mark on this beautiful White House complex. This briefing room, as you all know, was not once a briefing room. It was a swimming pool. There have been presidents who have completely torn down the executive mansion. If you look at what President Truman did, some of the photos of the construction project that took place in those years, I think sitting here today, we're all grateful for those efforts and the modifications that happened at that time. And again, in due time, the East Wing is going to be more beautiful and modern than ever before. And in addition, there will be a big, beautiful ballroom that can hold big parties and state visits for generations to come.
Do you know what I think part of what happened is? Do you remember when President Trump went to the Middle East? I can't remember if it was the United Arab Emirates, if it was, where did he go? Qatar, I think Saudi Arabia. He went to these incredible, what do you call them? They're not castles, but, these government buildings in the Middle East, and they were huge. And the president couldn't stop raving about these incredible buildings. And then he goes back to the White House and he's like, man, we can do better here. And so I think that is part of what he wants to do. And you grok this stuff, you look this stuff up and you cross-reference and so forth. And I'm just not seeing anywhere where the president is not allowed to do what he's doing. Now, you're going to have the Democrats who, they'll try to say, oh, he's not allowed to do this. And they'll take whatever law we're talking about and they'll bastardize it. They'll, do whatever they can to try to twist it into making it seem like Donald Trump is doing something wrong. But I'm not seeing it. And you heard Caroline Leavitt. You heard her talking about some of the past things that have happened in the White House in years past. And bottom line is, Obama put a swimming pool in there. I think it was Nixon that put in the bowling alley. Somebody, I can't remember who it was. Somebody put in a swimming pool. Let's see here. FDR put an indoor pool in. That was 1933. Truman put a balcony in 1940s. Obama put in that basketball court in 2009. They had Calvin Coolidge's third floor addition back in 1927. Bill Clinton's security upgrades in the 1990s. And here we are now with the ballroom in 2025. Here is more from Caroline Leavitt.
Big parties and state visits for generations to come.
So it sounds like the answer is yes, he can tear down whatever he wants. And then secondly,
that's not what we're saying. That's a legal opinion that's been held for many years. And
interpreting it.
No, it's something that presidents have done for years and years. In fact, I have some photos here. Thank you, Pat.
I love Caroline Leavitt goes and she gets these photos, and you'll notice the reporter is being really petulant because the reporter is like, oh, okay, so Donald Trump can tear down whatever he wants. No, that's not what Caroline Leavitt said. And earlier the reporter said something about, and I think it was the Jefferson Memorial, where she said, oh, so Donald Trump can tear down the Jefferson Memorial if he wants. And Caroline Leavitt says, no. That's not what he wants to do. In other words, this reporter is just being petulant. And Caroline Leavitt is not having any of it.
To show you the construction that's taken place on the White House grounds. This is the construction of the West Wing in 1902. Look at this, the construction of the West Terrace in 1902. These images look quite similar to what you and the American people are seeing today, the construction of the East Terrace as well. Look at the construction of the West Wing expansion in 1934. So, look, this is a legal opinion that's been held for many years. Look at, this is 1950. It looks a lot like what you were seeing today.
Can he demolish anything he wants?
What do you think that rubble is? How did that rubble get?
I love this reporter. I wish that I wish that I could show you this. Let me tweet this out real quick. Follow me, please, on Twitter at Dan Mandis Show, X. I'm going to repost this. I just posted this. It's 2 minutes and 40 seconds long. This reporter, I don't know who this reporter is, but she has this look like, oh, I'm going to get you with a gotcha question. She's doing that whole thing the reporters do when they smile when they ask questions, like, I'm going to get you. And Caroline Leavitt is like, nope, look at this picture.
Can he demolish anything he wants?
What do you think that rubble is? How did that rubble get there?
Right, so I'm asking, and then back to the donors.
Go ahead, Reagan.
Many of them are...
Reagan, go ahead.
Yeah, so Caroline Leavitt is like, DUN done with this reporter. So 5763 says this, and this is, by the way, in Nashville during my show in Nashville on WTN. I love the text line because it's like instant crowdsourcing, and I love it. So I say, for example, didn't the Clintons steal stuff out of the White House when they were on their way out? So here's what they say. This is from 5763 here in the state of Tennessee. During their transition out of the White House in 2001, Bill and Hillary Clinton drew criticism for taking gifts and furnishings, prompting them to return some items and pay for others. Separate allegations of vandalism and theft made by incoming Bush administration staff were largely unsubstantiated, they said, though some pranks and damaged property were confirmed. So there you go. TB says out of California, TB says, that's right. The Clintons and staff took all the W's from every keyboard in the White House. because George W. Bush was coming in. I had forgotten about that. Anyway, so I just, this White House thing that everybody is freaking out about on the left, I think, me personally, I think it's good to upgrade and update the White House. I mean, isn't it? It seems to me like if this is the story that the Democrats are going to hang their hat on, and clearly by the amount of coverage on CNN, this is the hill that they want to die on, well, then you go right on ahead. You go right on ahead. Because the American people have a lot more things that they're concerned about than what is going on with this reconstruction of the White House. Dan Mandis here, and appreciate you listening to Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Coming up, we've still got a lot to talk about. Donald Trump taking on the drug cartels. In the next hour, of course, we have ICE under fire from the Democrats as the Democrats continue to put larger and larger targets on the back of ICE agents. And more truth bombs from Fetterman, John Fetterman. Wait till you hear what he has to say about his own party. It is all straight ahead. Plus your calls coming up next right here on Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.